everyone, welcome back. I'm Jackie and I love to share food related things, and today I'm going to share with you one of my absolute favorite things to make that I save for my eating window, of course. It is Joanna Gaines cinnamon squares. They are so good. It's like a reimagined cinnamon roll. They're delicious. So let's get into how I make Joanna Gaines cinnamon squares right now. To start off with, we're going to have a 1/4 cup of warm water. You want to make sure it's not too hot, otherwise your yeast will die. We're going to add in our yeast, our sugar, give it a nice mix, and let that sit for about 4 minutes. That will make it nice and frothy, as you'll see here in a moment. I will be linking below to an online version of this recipe if you don't have Joanna Gaines' cookbook, which I got from my library. So now that I have the nice and frothy yeast sugar mixture, I am going to add that to the rest of the sugar. A stick of melted butter, 1 1/4 cup of warm milk, 2 eggs beaten, a teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to stir this all with a wooden spoon. Once this is mixed, I'm going to add in 6 cups of flour. I'm going to mix this together but leave my flour out because later I'll need it when I knead the dough. Now we're going to top this with soft butter and let it rise for an hour. I'm sticking it in a warm place now. Then I'll make the filling. I make this in my blender. It is the star of the dish, the filling, in my opinion. You add 2 cups of pecans, 2 cups of packed brown sugar, 2 sticks of butter, chilled, and 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and then you blend it. And it does get kind of stuck in there, so I use my spatula to kind of help it move about in between mixing it so I don't overheat or overwork my blender because it gets really sticky. At the end of the blending, you're left with this wonderful divine mixture. An hour after you let your dough start rising, you can plop it onto a very floured surface. I always use my countertops and make sure they're clean and floured, and then you can start working the dough. You're going to want to preheat your oven to 350 so that once you're done, you can get this right into the oven. This is the point where I get my oven ready because it comes together fairly quickly. As you're working your dough, you want to make sure you make it a large rectangle. The recipe calls for a 16 by 24. Now I don't measure, I just kind of eyeball it to make sure it will fit my pan in the end. But once you make a rectangle, you're going to take about half of your filling. I usually a little bit more than half, probably about 2/3. And you're going to take your time to spread it out. It does take a little bit of time. I have found that a cake decorating spatula like this metal one actually works the best. And you want to cover most of the surfaces, leaving a little bit at the edge because this is where the tricky sticky part comes in. And don't worry, it doesn't have to look super beautiful. You can see mine is kind of coming apart a little bit as it's sticking to the counters. I do find that the more I make this, the easier it is to work with because you anticipate it a little more. But I am folding all of my edges into itself, and that is what's going to create the nice pecan and cinnamon layers. So once you have folded your edges in and you make a nice little square rectangle shape, you're basically going to start the process again. As you can see, I have now my second rectangle, and I am going to check that my pan fits. It fits the size of the pan, so I'm roughly going to try to get it back to this shape again. I am dumping the last remaining 1/3 to 1/2, however you did it. You want a little bit more at the beginning since it's a larger surface, and you spread it out once again. You get to the edges, and then you are going to fold the edges in. I encourage you to resist the urge to be angry at the sticky dough. Just remember the recipe calls for the dough to be sticky, and that's part of the magic. It turns out delicious. You just want to make sure you have a floured surface, floured hands, floured rolling pin, and you will get through with it. Don't add a bunch of extra flour, otherwise the dessert won't turn out. I can promise you that. So here I am, just taking my time, working with the sticky dough, getting it off my counters, and I'm going to reshape it. It's going to be layered with the dough and the cinnamon pecan sugar mixture at this point. And once you get it reshaped, you're going to start cutting your bars. And you just see I'm gently just getting all of the seams pushed together and closing in my dough. Now that you have made this delicious looking brick, I always think it looks beautiful right from the start. You're going to cut it into 24 squares. I don't worry about them being 100% even, or even if it was not 24 and you got 20, don't worry about it. You just want to cut them, put them on a parchment lined sheet, and get your squares situated so that you can now brush them with an egg. You beat one egg and you use a brushing tool to cover the tops and the sides before you put them in the oven. Once coated in the egg, you're going to place in a preheated oven for 25 to 30 minutes, and they come out this golden, gooey deliciousness. You can see they fill in the gaps from when you place them, and you want to let them cool about 15 minutes, and they're perfect with coffee. These cinnamon squares are sinfully good. They have a perfect nuttiness. The wonderful 3 sticks of butter really shine through in this dessert, and I'm eating it hot, and I absolutely love it. I definitely recommend making this. If you follow the instructions, the dough is going to be sticky. It's going to be kind of hard to work with, but the end result is worth it.